Are you a Star Wars fan, James?
I like original Star Wars. Not
Okay.
Yep.
Not the comics. Or
Okay,
those would
so
be
when you say
considered
original Star Wars, I
walk
don't
us
know
through
exactly what you mean by that.
Not
Like,
the prequels.
No, we were asking James.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
like they came out in the 70s that we all grew up with terrible CGI and bad animation.
But isn't that like episode?
How old were you in the 70s?
Well, now they say it was 4, 5, 6 because they
4,
put
5, and
the
6.
they put the terrible ones in front of that. So
So it's
My
4,
opinion.
5, and 6. Those are the ones that really are kind of considered as like the OG.
those are the one I grew
Okay.
up with.
Those were the first ones I watched.
So
too.
those are the originals, even though they're the middle.
And then you have
they were made first.
then you have what the Revenge of the Sith. That was like later on. So you wouldn't consider that one to be.
No, it's not my thing.
Anything with Jar Jar Binks in it.
No.
Wait,
It's
is that
out.
real?
So I don't even know the
You
characters.
can't cut Jar Jar Binks
They're
out.
It's
Is he not
terrible.
original?
It's a cult classic to hate him.
Is that okay? Well, that shows how little of a Star Wars fan I am because Misa
Dude, I
loved Jar
have
Jar
no
Binks.
idea. I couldn't,
Misa.
if you were to put a lineup of all those characters, I could tell you who Luke Skywalker is.
Right.
Chewbacca.
Nice.
Good call.
Is that
I bet
right?
you'd get Jabba the
Yeah,
Hutt.
yep.
You get
Jabba
him.
the
Jabba the
Hutt.
Hutt.
That I would hope
Darth
you would.
Vader.
You'd
And there's
get Darth
another, who was
Maul.
the dude with Chewbacca?
Han Solo.
Han
Han Solo.
Solo.
I could figure those guys
You could
out.
also get Boba Fett, Jango Fett. You could get
Princess Leia.
Princess Leia.
Oh, Leia, I could understand and know who Princess Leia is. I don't know who the
C3PO.
Fed guy is.
You could get Darth
R2D2.
Maul. You
But I
could-
don't know which one's which.
You could get Emperor Palpatine. You could get C-3PO.
I know
you
the
could
names
get
C-3PO and
C-4PO.
R2D2,
You could get a lot of
but
these.
I don't know which.
So
I
he's
couldn't.
the real Star
He's the
Wars
one with
fan
legs.
here.
I couldn't tell you which.
C3PO
Could
has
you
legs.
could you get Greedo?
R2D2 has
No.
wheels.
Really?
Yeah,
He's green. He looks like a lizard.
and he's in the originals.
Could you get Jar Jar Binks?
No.
Could you get the guy that goes, "We so no like it the Naboo"?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Every Dad podcast. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching this particular endeavor that we're trying to do for dads. Right here.
It's a good word.
You like that? That was big. I pulled that one out of the back pocket.
Nice.
As you can tell, again, we're doing another interview. And we have the one and only James Kempton with us, and we'll get into your
up?
story later. But, man, welcome to the Every Dad podcast, bro.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It's we're not gonna ask you what you think later. Like we're just gonna do the process and then, shake hands. We're not gonna ask you what you think or what you thought. We don't want to.
Like a debrief? We're not going to
Yeah,
debrief?
we're not gonna do a debrief for the
All right.
people that we
Sounds-
interviewed.
sounds
We
good.
didn't
Good
debrief
things.
last time about not doing a debrief this time.
We did a debrief, but it was just us, and we know us,
Oh.
but we don't.
Are we?
Somebody new coming in, we don't really want to know the truth.
Is it because
Right.
we're worried?
Maybe
We like the bias.
We like to know that we think we're good.
we like to think that we're okay.
If you ask the group here, we're
as
good.
we're trying to figure it out.
I got it.
Yeah.
Seems
I mean, we're
professional.
learning. We've said it. We've said it all.
Yes.
He said it best.
What's that?
Seems real
professional to me.
professional.
Nice.
So that's
You
what
hear
we're
that,
going
Mom?
for. That's
We
the
made
vibe.
it.
Is the professional vibe. So
Anyway, so dude, thank you for. I know it's not normal to do a podcast with a bunch of dudes, but hey,
Sure.
We're super glad that you're here. And real quick, man, we know you from our church. You have a daughter in our student ministry, but the reason you're here is, man, you've kind of had a rough few months, and some of the things that have come out of that is really the story that we want to be able to hear and talk about because it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll let you kind of just share the last couple months of the James Kempton life, and just share with us what's going on, man.
yeah, absolutely. So,
before you do that, I
Before-
also want to say, and this is to no discredit of anyone else, but I do think that Carson's going to hear this, and we also have a Carson
We do.
who's in the student ministry
Yes,
as
this
well.
is
So shout out to Carson.
Sixth grader holding it down.
absolutely.
All right, so
Yeah.
I'm on the top end.
No,
stuff.
it's okay.
Like, I don't
It genuinely,
Good.
it wasn't.
You're
yeah.
good. I'm going to start there anyways. So,
There you go. All right, do it.
I
Thank
have
you
a
for-
now 12-year-old
There you
since
go.
all this has happened. This whole journey started. I coach baseball here in Panama City, and we playing 12 years this year, and we qualified to go to the Dizzy Dean World Series in South Haven, Mississippi. So that's where this started. So we head up that way, and we play, we get eliminated. There was some steep competition, little learning curve for us going into this one. One of the kids on the team, had a flu bug or something going on while this was going, and everybody else managed to luckily stay pretty healthy. So come back on the Saturday, got up on Sunday morning, got normal routine, getting ready for church, and we're walking out into the garage, get in the car, and I'm like, man, I do not feel great. Something feels off. I'm going to stay home. So family continued on to church over the next couple days. Flu symptoms seemed like just a normal thing. I have diabetes. I have type 1 diabetes on a pump. So I get sick sometimes, and maybe a little more than one of y'all if you had the flu. So
I think it was like that keto or whatever you call it.
Yeah, DK,
That's
diabetic ketoacidosis. No, it was
I
just.
tried to sound smart.
It's all right. Just the flu. Went to the ER. Tried to get some IV fluids. Over the next couple days, did a couple of visits there, and ended up being admitted. And I was admitted for flu A, nothing crazy, and pneumonia.
Okay.
So get to our local hospital, in there for a couple days. Pneumonia gets real bad. They go in to clean out the bronchioles, get all the stuff out of there, and I go into cardiac arrest. And
Wow.
it's rough,
Yeah.
I don't remember any of this. I was a little out of it, obviously, and then pronounced dead for that split second. And to know your wife experienced you collapsing right there and having to watch somebody do compressions on you, that's eye-opening for sure.
Yeah.
So get intubated, all this happens. They end up putting me in a helicopter and sending me over to Gainesville to a different hospital.
How long were you intubated for? Do you know?
Couple weeks, I think.
Dang.
Intubated,
Wow.
sedated. They use the term coma, medically induced coma with meds. I couldn't tell you how many lines or machines or anything that was going on.
Man.
So wake up, get extubated, have like an aha moment, like, hey, there's a nurse right here, and there's my wife. And last time I was awakened with it, I was in Panama City. Now I'm in Gainesville.
Yeah.
So, have one good day there, and then they find some blood clots up near my heart, and back intubated again, and do the whole process again. And long story short, no major lasting effects, some minor injuries. One lasting effect is just a great appreciation for life.
Well, and honestly, and that's where we want to spend our time with, because we're all ministers at the church that you go to,
Absolutely.
and part of one of the things that we get to do as ministers is we get to make hospital visits, and sometimes we don't know the people, sometimes we know them a lot, sometimes they're repeat customers, but getting to hear when he got back to Panama City, of course we didn't go see you when you were in Gainesville, but when you got back to Panama City, being able to talk to you in a coherent fashion, being able to have a conversation with you about things that were going on and how you're feeling, Ty and I were like, man, this is pretty cool. Like we need to get this guy on the podcast to be able to tell his story. But at the same time, like the time that you were in that coma, Robbie and Ty are ministers to your students.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were experiencing something on the outside of it while you were going through this. So I think there's just a lot that we can talk about. And I know you guys probably have some questions for him, but, really, you said it, hey, you kind of gone through some pretty traumatic stuff. And then now you have this appreciation for life. And I want to address something that you said later on, but I'll let you guys kind of talk through that.
And I was kind of getting some of the point of view of everything going on through your daughter.
Absolutely.
And so with that, my wife's medical. So Cadence would tell me some of the things, and I would either immediately text or I would go, talk that night, and hey, so this is what she's saying. And so like admitted for flu, but then it got pretty rough there pretty quick. And there was one point where they were trying to like cool you down. Mm-hmm. And whenever I relayed that, what the info I got back from my wife was like, you need to just prepare yourself to be there for her.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't good.
Right.
It wasn't good at that point. And I remember at that point it was around like she was trying to make the decision on camp and stuff like that. And so I know there was a time where you said you had to like pull the kids in basically and kind of talk with them about that.
Yeah, this was before I was even admitted. Like, the standalone ER by my house had come home, gone back, and then the third time before I got ready to go, and I don't remember this, so forgive me. This is coming from my wife, Brittany, but, Brittany said, you just grabbed the kids and told them you love them, and
wow.
And as I'm leaving there, I told my wife, like, this does not, something doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And at some point, I told her, like, I feel like I'm going to die. I don't know what's going on here. So yeah, I mean, I guess in that moment, somewhere in my subconscious, I thought, I better at least have a good moment with my children and let them know that I love them.
Yeah. So you don't even remember that moment for them.
No, I don't remember that. The last thing I remember before everything happened was a nurse coming in and saying, hey, we're going to transfer you to another hospital and admit you. So there's a lot of that in there, touch and go stuff.
Yeah. So, and we'll go ahead and get to the, selfishly, I'll get to the point I want to talk about. One of the times that Ty and I saw you in the hospital, the doctors were still like making sure you were strong enough to leave.
Right.
You were up walking in the hospital, so it's not like you were hooked to a bunch of stuff. You're able to talk, you were laughing, like had a smile on your face. Your wife was smiling, and she seemed a little more relaxed,
less stressed,
because you're alive,
Right.
And one of the things that you said, and it made a profound effect on me, the way that you said it. You're like, I know that God has a purpose for me now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you could kind of share that, like to for someone, and maybe this helps a dad, despite the stuff, the tragedy that's going on, like to know, you were pronounced dead-ish.
Right.
They had to bring you back to life.
Yeah.
Correct.
Doctors and family didn't know, but for you to come out of me and go, man, I know that God has a purpose for me. Like, man, that speaks volumes to who God is and what He's doing. In fact, that He's not done with you yet.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
can you speak to that? Like,
yeah, for sure. We all go through our Christian walk, and we have times where we're up on the highs of the highs and at the lows of the lows. And I wasn't in either of those places necessarily, but I definitely wasn't as close to God in my walk as I have been.
yeah,
At that time. Our kids are in church. Both of our kids are saved. We know that they know who Jesus is and that Jesus is alive in their life.
right.
But it wasn't at every conversation we had,
Right.
or weren't living it to look forward to a conversation with somebody about Jesus every day. I was surrounded by fellow believers through this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'd go to an appointment here on the follow-up, and the doc walks in and is like, "Woo, I bet you know Jesus, don't you?" And I'm like, "Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely."
Yeah.
And if I didn't, when all this happened, I would now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's been amazing. Doctors and nurses to walk in that you don't necessarily know if they're a believer, and for them to walk in and say, "Wow, this is just a miracle that you're."
Wow.
Sitting up, talking to us, and we're not promised tomorrow. And to get it tomorrow, and another day and another day is it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And I'm not some superhuman or some super Christian. There's days that I got to remind myself, like, hey, you're still here for a reason, so make the best of it. You know what I mean?
Act like it, boy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
there's been some really cool things, and again, like us getting to go and just kind of see you on Thursdays, and it was kind of
Right.
funny because I saw you. I think it was the very next Thursday after you got released. I saw you at Publix, and I was like, I'm used to seeing you on Thursdays, but I'm just
Yeah,
not used to seeing
absolutely.
you up and moving around in a Publix and all that. So, has just super cool to see, and I know it is cool how God. And it seems like everybody that we talk to kind of uses, God. It's crazy the things that God uses to strengthen faith and that sort of thing. And you've hit a lot of, kind of some of the things that we wanted to talk about
For sure.
today. What's one thing maybe that maybe it's practical or something that you have kind of come back to the drawing board of, your fatherhood, if you will, and you. I'm sure you were an amazing father before this, but just kind of having this experience and saying, man, my life, it's not guaranteed.
Right.
Tomorrow may never come. So looking at today, I know that I can control this next moment. So what are some of those things that maybe as a father or as a husband, that somebody listening to this would be able to say, man, like this is a practical thing that he's added to his life that might have previously felt maybe small or that we've taken for granted, but now it's something that is very important and is a huge part of what you do on a consistent basis.
For sure. I mean, I have 2 kids. Y'all have kids. We get stressed at times. It's
I don't get stressed.
okay.
What?
Okay,
Cool as a cucumber.
I'm cool as a
To
cucumber all the
to
time.
just take a second. Like I've always struggled with being patient. Like I'm quick to be like, hey, come on, why are we doing that way?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Just take a minute because a lot of those things, and I still struggle with it. And I'm not perfect. I'm not some super dad. Just let the little things go. Worry about the big things. I got an 18-year-old who's gonna graduate this year and move on to college, and a wife who's in the Air Force. So who knows how far apart we could be? So just try to enjoy all those moments. And there's days I struggle with it like everybody else does, but to just keep on going and try to remain patient and only worry about the big things. 'Cause
Yeah.
the little things are
Yeah.
ain't nothing to worry about.
And you're right. That can be hard sometimes
It
to
can.
pick your battles
It sure
correctly
can.
and to make sure that those
sure.
little things just kind of roll off. But you are right. And when
Yeah.
you think about that, like, and in moments, I don't have anything like this necessarily to compare it to, but in moments where I do feel like our, my family structure or some of the things, I just kind of get recalibrated, if you will, through just some of the storms of life. And it does seem like every time I'm like, man, those little things just really, really don't make that much of a difference.
No, they don't.
And it's very,
Yeah, for
very
sure.
wise.
So one of the things that we also like to talk about on this, Every Dad podcast is, our wives play a pretty big role in what we do.
Yeah.
And, we want to be better husbands so we can be better dads. We want to always give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
Right? Like we get to do what we do because our wives are pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so how has your wife been through this whole process? Like, has y'all's relationship strengthened through this? Like, I mean, I'm sure it was pretty rough for her, but
Yeah, absolutely, man. She is my rock, let me tell you.
Good answer. Good answer.
We have
Ding,
been
ding,
together
ding.
since we were 15 and 16.
Oh, wow.
January, we'll be married for 20 years. But I mean, everything she went through, we go into a doc and he's like, "Hey, do y'all need some therapy?" And I'm like, dude, I was not there for most of it. She probably does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I was taking a good nap.
I was out.
I don't need to process. I need to
Absolutely.
remember.
Yeah, I have to ask her, like, so what happened again and when was that?
Don't need to process. I just need to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's that's a T-shirt right there.
for
Right.
sure.
Sorry.
But no, man, her faith through this whole thing, been
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny trying to remember all this. My wife had. I'm not a social media person. I have a Facebook account, but that's about it.
Yeah.
She, just to keep friends and family in the loop during this whole thing, had posted like an update every day or every couple of days. So when I got out of the rehab here, being back home, and got home. I just sat on the couch one day. It's just me. And I started reading all those posts. And this happened today. And, hey, we're having a great day. And then tomorrow comes and, you know, we got clots and they're going in to take, you know, to do a major surgery procedure, or, you know, James coded tonight. We were doing great. But so for her, the amount of responses and prayer from people that you haven't talked to in 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that outpouring of love from friends and family, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
That's really
So,
cool.
Yep.
For her, I mean, for me, seeing her face through this was, it was big.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, walking into a hospital room, like, part of what we do is, like, we try to read the room.
Right.
You know, because we don't know what we're going to walk into. You know, they can give us an update, and we can kind of have an idea of what's going on. But to walk in and try to read the room, like, so the first time that, I mean, I know you would either go with Andrew or by yourself, and so I'm sure it was the same thing for you. You walk in, you're going to read the room, figure out what's going on.
I walk in and he's sitting up talking, like smiling.
Right.
I'm like, whoa.
Okay, so
hold on.
Yeah.
So the first time we went, we're like, we're recalling all the stuff,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And we're
Yes.
like, okay, dude, like, we don't know, because we've had some experiences at the hospital. Let's be honest. Like, there's been some things that we can't talk about.
That's B-roll.
That's extra time. But like, so we didn't know, and so we walk in and we're like, like it's like we could breathe for a second
Yep.
because your wife is smiling, your mom and dad were there, and you know, just so how did family and friends? I mean, you kind of alluded to it. You know, they prayed for you, but like, were family and friends important in this process, even though you were out of it most of the time? But like, I mean, coming out of it, like, family.
So crazy. Mom had knee replacement like maybe a few months before. Dad had broke his hip the month before, fell off a ladder, broke his leg at the top of his femur.
Dang.
So
That's gotta hurt.
That sounds like it's hurt.
So, but for them, they were there immediately. You know, my
Yeah.
parents are both retired.
Yeah.
So they were there with my wife, comforting her through all of this, and they were comforting each other, you know.
So your dad was still being a dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my dad would be the first one to talk to somebody about Jesus.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
First question, he doesn't ask you your name. He's like, so you go to church?
I think that's probably. I think that's true. I'm pretty sure he asked me
us
about
that.
my salvation after I told him I was a minister.
Exactly.
I was like, yeah, I go to Highland Park.
He's
and
just
I'm
double-checking.
there, and I'm
He was
actually,
double-checking.
you know,
Yeah.
Carson's youth pastor. Okay, great. Do you know Jesus? That's going to be important for the next couple of years for Carson too.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, they're amazing people. And they've been amazing through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Just faithful to us, my wife. It's funny, my dad, talking about that about my dad. I grew up in church from about 6 or 7 when my dad stepped off an aircraft. He was in the Air Force and felt like he did something to his leg and found out he had the 15th case of a rare cancer. So, which is what got us into church, which is why me and my sisters are saved and all of the grandkids are saved. So, you know, this was my eye opener after he had his. So I don't know, but never know what God's doing. So.
Well, and with saying that, kind of this has allowed you to have some just rare opportunities with your kids.
Absolutely.
And so, like, how have you seen their faith grow in this? You've spoken to this grow in your faith even more, but how have you seen that in your kids?
Oh man, they're pretty amazing. And extremely resilient. You know, you talked about my daughter was on that youth trip. That was the best thing that could have happened for her at that time. You know, Matt, our small group leader, said she was great the whole time. There was one day where she's sitting there at the table eating lunch, and he walked up and said, you know, can I just give you a hug? And it's what she needed in that moment. But man, she's been amazing.
Yeah.
Never let on that anything was really, really bothering her. For an 18-year-old, she's super strong in her faith.
Yeah.
She's the one who got us involved in church more at Highland Park. Hey, we got to get there early on Sunday mornings. Y'all need to get in a small group because I got stuff I got to do. So, you know, and thankfully for Carson, I think he's young enough that the gravity of the situation didn't didn't affect him too much, you know. But you know, he's still young, so he does a good job of I don't know, coping with things, I guess. I'm not sure, but you know, that's the most important thing to me is I know where my kids are going. You know, my kids know where I'm going if something happens to me. So yeah, I can't say enough about that. So by the grace of God.
Well, we know the journey's not over. You still got bandages and, you know, stuff, but
Minor stuff. Absolutely.
And you know, one of the things that, again, I'm going to go back to the thing that you said in the hospital, man. I still have a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, and that can be said for all of us. You know, as we're living and breathing, you know, God's got a plan and a purpose for us, and you know, He's got a plan for us to be able to advance the kingdom. And it's cool to see a dad be able to do that. It's cool to be able to hear that your dad still was a dad to you.
Absolutely.
In the middle of this, and you were a dad to your kids, and man, that's it. You know, advancing the kingdom, teaching our kids what it means to be a loving Christ follower, and So thank you, dude. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you
and,
for that.
Thank you.
If you're listening and watching, you have a plan and a purpose. God has a plan and a purpose for your life, and we're never going to stop doing the thing that God has called us to do. So, man, James, appreciate it. Appreciate the time, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening right here on Every Dad Podcast.